Today on the podcast, I have Mike Gamble. Mike has a tremendous experience in our industry. I started with Marriott and worked with the Philadelphia Convention Visitors Bureau before starting SearchWide. And a lot of great nuggets you're going to get listening to this episode. One of them is what type of skills should you be focusing on to prepare yourself for the future. Another one is how you can start developing your own business. And when you start developing your own business, how do you find new clients? And also a great point about diversity and inclusion and what's going on in our industry. Enjoy this episode with Mike Gamble. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meetings podcast. And today I'm delighted that he is such a busy person that he's taking time to speak with me. Mike Gamble from SearchWide. How are you, Mike?
I am good, Eric. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
No, thank you. And, for those who don't know you, you had an amazing career with Marriott, with I think it's a Philadelphia Convention Visitors Bureau. And obviously you started SearchWide years ago and you became the reference, not only in the meetings and event industry, also in the ticketing industry, and I'm sure others as well. And I thought that with all your background, speaking today about, finding a job, preparing itself for a job, but also looking at our industry, you're the greatest person I could think of for that. So thanks for taking the time.
Well, you're welcome. Again, looking forward to it. Thank you.
And from what I know about you is that your business, your successful business is kind of an excuse for the most important thing, which is your family and your children, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Eric. I have 4 children. They're all grown now. They're all in their 20s. But yeah, grateful for those 4 kids and a great wife. 34 years, if you can imagine that. But yeah, that's the heart and soul of who I am for sure.
And your wife is a perfect example of behind every successful wife, there's an awesome man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she'll like that very much. Nice work.
So before we get into the SearchWide business as such, you started your career in working with Marriott.
Yeah.
You did study specifically for our industry. So you're kind of an exception who knew exactly what he wanted to do.
Yeah, it's true. I went to the University of Wisconsin, Stout in Wisconsin. I'm a Wisconsin guy and earned a degree in hotel restaurant management. But I'll tell you, Eric, I started in business administration, University of Wisconsin business administration. And then when I called my father and said, Dad, I'm transferring to Stout in Menominee, Wisconsin. They have a degree in hotel restaurant. His first response was they actually have a 4-year degree in that. I mean, that's how long ago that was. And, then he watched me go to Marriott and continue. And later, even in life, before he passed, he said, boy, you weren't kidding. That is an industry. And it's just kind of, isn't that funny? We hear so many say that, but
yes.
I was grateful to go there and really to be hired by Marriott. I mean, that was the foundation for me. I mean, 9 great years in multiple locations, learning so much about not only the hotel business, but just how to be a good leader primarily. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Everybody I knew, not only through Marriott, but certainly as well, that I've gone through this experiencing the same. It's a wonderful school of professionalism. So good for you. And what you were telling really reminded me as well what I had experienced. I also studied business. And when I decided to leave the stockbroker company for which I had developed the entire marketing department and go into the incentive trip business, people go, what? In what? With your degree? Are you serious? But I must say that I never regretted 1 second, and that's how it was. And then from hotels, you made the switch to, is it the bright side or the dark side to going to work for Destination and Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau?
Yeah, interesting. Marriott was expanding in Philadelphia, and I was running the global office in Chicago. And Bill Marriott, the family, actually owned that property at the time that they were building in Philadelphia. And he made it clear that he wanted all the GSO folks to see Philadelphia and see the property. So I started spending a lot of time there. And yeah, it was clear to see that was going to be an amazing destination. And then again, I was fortunate to be offered the job as Senior VP of Sales and Marketing, and big departure, hard leaving Marriott. But I honestly always had some interest in a DMO, a CVB type role. And so glad that I did that because I learned a lot about things I thought I knew that I didn't know about the exhibition space, especially. And so, yeah, I did that for about 5 years before starting this company in Philly.
So, and that's fascinating what you're saying, because it's true. People don't realize, but everything is a profession and everything is different. And unless you are fully committed in what you do, you don't really realize that.
That's
so
right.
You said 5 years in the Convention and Visitors Bureau. What make you decide not only to leave the Convention and Visitors Bureau, but you were Senior VP of Sales. You could have applied for a CEO job or going in another destination. So what happened in your life? And that's specifically for people who are listening that are business owners in our industry or thinking of starting their own business. What happened in your life? You're in corporate America, you're very successful, and you're thinking, nah, I'm going to start my own company, and I'm going to start my own company actually doing executive search.
Thanks for asking the question. I've only told the story a handful of times.
I'm sure.
and you're gonna appreciate it because it's connected to MPI. In Philadelphia, we hosted MPI. We knew we needed to host the big industry events. I was the chairman of the foundation at the time. In addition, I was the chairman of the host committee. And so, I was sitting at the leadership dinner that happens before the MPI event, right? And I'm sitting with Brian Stevens and Bob Moore, who was the incoming chair of the board of MPI and had just accepted the position of Senior Vice President of Sales for Starwood Hotels. And Brian leaned over to me and said, I always had an entrepreneurial bug. And Brian, he's got a lot of ideas, and I love him for that. And he leaned over, he goes, you should start a search firm. And I got to tell you, Eric, the minute it came out of his mouth, I looked at him and I said, well, why do you say that? And he pointed at Bob. He goes, well, he's going to start what he might need. I mean, Brian had already thought it all out. And by the way, Brian and I were business partners for quite a few years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We're not anymore, but we're still dear friends. But it was really his idea. And It was at that event. And honestly, Bob Moore said, yeah, I probably could use your help if you decide to do this. Well, 3 weeks later, I did it. And again, that was, that's the essence, though, too, of being involved in organizations like MPI, isn't it? You develop those relationships and you network, and all of a sudden, opportunities present themselves. So that's the story. Yeah,
that's fabulous. So I remember when I started my first business in our industry, the two first clients, one came from a family member that was working in a large corporation, Johnson & Johnson, and said, that person is looking for organizing an advisory board. Go and talk to her, and the rest is your business. And the second one was a friend from ISEC, the student organization that I was a member very active in, who was number 3 of Café de Colombia, Juan Valdez in Europe, and said, that's it. We're looking for a new agency. Do you want to have a meeting with the president in Europe in Brussels? I said, yeah, of course. So you're telling this story with Bob and Brian. Are you looking at the first 2 years building only on that, or building on previous relationship, or just how did you find, let's say, your first 10 clients?
Yeah, boy, and this is what told me that it was going to go. Bob was a first client, and when he realized a couple of days later, while we're still at MPI, he kind of realized I was serious. He said, "Okay, Mike, seriously, like if you do this, I mean, I would be one of your first clients." The other one was Charlotte St. Martin at Lowe's. We had just built Lowe's in Philadelphia, and John Tisch, who again. A good friend, and we just had a mutual trust and bond, and with John and Charlotte, and they come in. And the minute I had those two in such respected leaders in the industry, and of course with Lowe's and Starwood, I thought, let's go, and so the vision was, well, kind of where we are, right? I thought it'll likely start in the hotel industry, but it will venture out. And today, as you know, we're in convention centers, stadiums, arenas, DMOs. And experiential is big for us. A lot of chamber work as well. But of course, the hotel is a staple, or it was certainly pre-COVID. But it was. Listen, and by the way, where we started with my family, so I had the four kids were under 6. We just had our 4th child. So this goes back to my wife, Beth, and me going home and saying, "Hey, honey, listen, sit down and listen to this idea." And she immediately said, "Do it." She, after listening for about 20 minutes, she said, "Wow." So it was, when I look back at it, Eric, I don't know that I could make a decision like that today. And I'm grateful I did in my mid-30s. But you know what I mean? You've got experiences like that where you think back and go, "Gosh, what was I thinking? I'm glad I did it, but what was I thinking?" And it was a risk, but I'm grateful for it.
So, yeah, and I obviously can totally relate to what you're saying. And as you know, restarting everything and changing country is also an interesting experience, which I never regret 1 second for sure. But let's say that you're talking to somebody who doesn't necessarily have the background that you have or the network that you have. What would be the first thing that you would advise them to do in terms of finding new clients for their business?
Yeah, for their business. Yeah, Eric, it's really it really is about networking, and you've got to grow your circle. And we talk a lot about you always want to stay very connected with your previous coworkers, supervisors, direct reports, anybody you've ever come in contact with. But we also talk about getting outside of your comfort zone and expanding your network into other circles and learning about new businesses or even new verticals within our greater business. I mean, travel, tourism, hospitality, and events is an expansive, global, as you know, business that has so many facets to it. And there's really no one that knows every aspect of that. And so, as an entrepreneur, I would say that, this piece is important. And I think, understanding if you're not the one that has the relationships, perhaps you go into business with someone who does, because people are going to do business with you if they know you and they trust you. And that's what a little bit what it's really what Charlotte and Bob said. They said, "Well, we trust you. You tell us you're going to do this, you're going to do it." And I'm like, wow, that's the biggest compliment you could ever given me. And so I think, I've started other businesses. We've got other businesses, and the key is you still got to have someone that's at the front, that's driving the top line, and that's typically doing it through the relationships that they have, or at least they know how to do it. If you're not comfortable doing it, teaching it is hard, as you know. I mean, that networking piece and expanding your reach, it doesn't come naturally for everyone. And honestly, I have a lot of entrepreneur friends that just say it's just not natural for them, but almost all of them have some kind of a partner or someone else they started the business with that loves that they love being out front, and they love developing new business and new relationships and kind of being the connector for the business. And that's my job today. And it always has been in the company is I like to be the chief connector. And that's what I focus on. So I guess that's some advice I would give.
I love what you're saying. It's and we're taking out of it. It's you need a face for the company, regardless of the size of the company. And to your point, it's always good when you have at least 2 persons that are very complementary with each other, not doing the same thing. I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of entrepreneurs do, obviously in our industry, but outside, and I did it as well when I started my first business, is trying to do the networking and the business development and the logistics and the project. You end up doing nothing perfectly and spending a lot of time and stressing at the end of the day. Yeah,
you're right about that. I had to learn that. We both had to learn that the hard way, didn't we? And you finally realize, wow. And I've kind of been lucky, my dear friend Jim Cara, who we lost a few years ago to a heart attack. I mean, he was just the best at being out front, developing. And I've got a couple of people on our team today that are that way too. And so, but you're right. If you talk to any entrepreneur who's just starting, that's their biggest difficulty is finding the business. Okay, and if they're good at that, it's then executing it. And how, when you're executing, do you still keep the funnel full, with new opportunities? And so yeah, it's a skill, but likely it comes through the hiring of others who can offset your skills and bring other things to the table. That's the real key.
Now, with your experience, and obviously you've been there yourself in hotel, you've been there yourself in CVB's Convention and Visitors Bureau, and you see the evolution of those two part of our industry, and especially today. Mm-hmm. There's nothing anybody can do against what's going on. So having seen the evolution pre-COVID and what's coming after, what would be your advice for people that were working in hotels or were working in convention and visitors bureau and today are looking for a job or just wondering, should I stay in this industry? Should I do something else? What is your advice for them?
Yeah, great question. Because the numbers are big, Eric.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
In fact, it just some new numbers came out today that over 40% of the unemployment is coming from hospitality and leisure. And by the way, I don't even know if that includes meeting and events. And so I've got to go look more closely at that data. But we, as Roger Dow would say, that we at one point we thought there was over 50% unemployment in our industry. What I would say is this: one, the furlough is a bit of false hope, and I often say to people who are furloughed, who seem to be like, "Hey, I'm going to take the summer," and I often say, "Hey, act like you're not going back." Mm-hmm. So if you are going back, great, then that's a bonus. But act like you're not. And then the other piece is, finding a job is a full-time job. And so you better work at it as often as you can every single day. And it's back to what I said before, and that is just the connecting, the networking, trying to help others. And through doing that, you're likely going to create some opportunities for yourself. And then I will say that I do think we're going to lose folks to other industries, Eric. And I think that those that have, a diverse background and set of skills are going to be able to find work in other places. In tech and healthcare, and in the greater industry, travel, tourism, hospitality, and events, we have some really skilled folks at all levels, right? At entry level to CEO, and so the likelihood is, because the layoffs and furloughs are so severe, that we're going to lose some to other industries, and that's where I would say identify your transferable skills. So what you're good at, what do you know would move over to tech or hospitality, or tech or healthcare or other industries, and then you'll be able to tell that story to someone, because I'll tell you, other industries really do value people from our industry. It's just that we don't cross over much because we love it so much. It's a fun industry.
Yeah, I was just thinking, spend their life in as fun as it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. But I think we will lose some good talent. We'll see if they boomerang back, but that would be some of the advice that I would give. I think people have to take it pretty seriously, because the other piece is that, unlike any other recession we've had, and we've heard this time and again, this will likely be longer, mainly on the unemployment piece, longer to absorb all of the talent that is currently laid off. That's the key. And if you're a part of that, you've got to go after it every day.
Yeah. So we had in the last years a shift from the 9-to-5 work in the office to almost 24/7, but from anywhere. Now everybody's saying you should take this opportunity, and I agree with it, to accelerate things that you always thought to do. Not only necessarily pivoting, although that might be a solution, pivoting, but also accelerating what you were planning to do and acquiring new skills. So if you look into our world in 21, 22, and the years beyond, with still a lot of hotels being built, a lot of destination, probably an increased demand of people to meet with each other because they might be working more remote that they use in the past. That's a personal belief. But what are the skills you think that people should be looking at in general for themselves if they want to project themselves in the next years and be employable or have their own business?
Yeah, I do think, boy, that's a big question. I do think that people, we have clients right now that say, hey, now more than ever, I need doers, I need difference makers. I mean, I need people that can really go after it. And so if you're not a comfortable consensus builder or project leader or even communicator, I think that you can go and develop some of those skills. I'll tell you what, the health, safety, and security piece is one that we all need to be better educated on. Yep. And I would say that to everyone. I mean, I just think you need to know it. And I think, especially in our business, you're going to have an advantage if you know it. And so if you're a seller or a marketer and you are not well versed in those areas, you're going to be at a competitive disadvantage against the people who are well versed in those areas. So go out and learn it. The other thing I would say is DE&I. It's not okay to not understand what that is all about anymore. And our industry has been so far behind, Eric, as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, that, again, I'm grateful for the leaders who have stepped up to make a difference. It's always been an important focus for our company, but it's going to be a bigger focus. Mm-hmm. Like, I needed to push the envelope further and harder, and I will now. And I'm glad that I did for so many years, but now I got to push it harder. And for people who actually still say to me, gosh, they really don't understand why it's so important in the workforce, that's a huge competitive disadvantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's just stupidity is what it is. And so if you need more education, that's okay. Like, get it, but you can't be to the point where you don't get it anymore. And so really understand it and search inwardly to understand it, and reach out to friends that can help you to understand how critical it is, because this is really a disadvantage for our industry as a whole as it relates to talent acquisition. You've got especially ethnically diverse young people who look at our greater industry and a lot of times don't look at it as a viable option for their career because there aren't enough people who look like them in leadership roles. Yep. And there aren't, because we haven't built the bench quickly enough with those who are. And so I don't mean to go on and on about that, but as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about it. So I think that's a skill that we all need to improve on and get better about and have more sensitivity towards. So those would be a couple of things.
Are you preaching to the choir now? The way I've always looked at it, so I remember sharing the nominating committee 10 years ago and have zero female candidate, which at that moment said, okay, let's find out why. Yeah. And we realized that a lot of the chapter leaders thought that going into the international board was too much after all the commitment they had in the chapter, where at the end of the day, the time that they should commit was much less. So it was totally feasible. But then you're going into all the minorities. And not only, I remember with Angie Pfeiffer, we were not of the first to go to a LGBT reception, which was a big thing, which for us was just normal. It's a community from the organization. That's it. Yeah. Now, and I do fully agree with you. Trust me. We can talk about bullying, about discrimination, and it's another conversation that I'm very reactive to. My challenge is, first of all, acknowledging the issue. Great. Second, making the right recruitment. Fine. The true inclusion is like almost when Ellen DeGeneres said, when are we going back to judging people only by the car they drive? Which, of course, was humor, but the true inclusion is not happening overnight. That's and right. It's really looking at the person in front of you as a person, regardless of their difference with you, but just are they being honest? Are they doing a great job? Are they a nice person before anything else? Now, I wonder how organization going to do that.
Yeah. Well, you're right, Eric. That's a very, very important statement on your part. I think that, again, this is, for me, it's my view is it's bottom up and it's top down. And so we've really talked a lot and worked a lot on even the board diversification. And until we have the boards populated the right way with a very diverse board of directors, okay, and then you have the CEO held accountable for the utmost diversity in the organization, that's when you're really going to have an awareness by all of the people that work in that organization, right? Because again, I'm still learning. I've got a lot to learn as it relates to this, and I will always have a lot to learn. And what I know will help me to learn is for me to continue to diversify my team, and for me to continue to diversify my circles, so that they can give me that different perspective. And to your point, I think that is just really profound in that it's really every aspect is what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that until we really start to do it and hold the leaders accountable to do it, that's when we're going to have the real significant change. I mean, we're finally to a point in our company where it's okay. It's okay to say, hey, I don't understand that. Like, tell me more about that. And that'll be a white person asking a black person on our team. And I love it. It's like, yes, none of us understand it. Good question. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if some do and some don't. The fact that we have an environment now where we can actually say that and have an open dialogue about race in this case is really great. So
yeah, I'm totally with you. My perspective on it, of course, is being an immigrant from Europe. Some of the question here or some of the political correctness that is taking place here is something that I had to adapt to because if something I don't understand, I would just go to the person. Or if I disagree with somebody, I will tell them, regardless of what is their background or ethnic background, as a matter of fact. But that's, I am very optimistic with that. It's true, but it takes time. It does take time.
Yeah.
Now, in your position, you obviously see the different sectors. Which are the sector in our industry you think are going to rehire or hire more the quickest compared to others, and why?
Yeah, we've got good consistent DMO work right now, Eric, but all at the CEO level, and also convention center work again at the CEO level. We had some of that. We had a lot of that pre-COVID, but it's the quick. Those are the two segments to pick up to regain steam, if you will. Now, as we're looking at recovery, and I think that is primarily because they're in the DMO perspective, they're governed by boards that are volunteer boards, and they just can't survive without a leader. But on the facility side, I think it's also to say, hey, we need a new leader, and it might be a different leader that understands how our facility is going to operate from this point forward, right? And so those are coming back. The experiential side, which is again the show, the front of the house, if you will, is going to take obviously a lot longer until meetings get back into the fray and we have a vaccine. And then of course the hotel sector. There's just so many displaced hoteliers at all levels, from hourly up to senior VPs, that we think that's going to take a long time. Of course, the business to recover, but also just from a hiring perspective to recover. So we're starting to see, again, good traction in that nonprofit sector, the DMOs and chambers to a degree. Mm-hmm. So it's encouraging.
Very good. You made me think of, I just had an entrepreneurs organization lunch with an amazing entrepreneur who built a company from zero to 500 million in revenue in 5 years, wow. I think. But he was just saying about your point of having people that now doing things differently. He was looking for a marketing director, an agency, and it's down here in South Florida. So it was looking at hiring people from New York that knew all the brands and the cosmetic brands that he wanted to reach out to. And so people will come and he would ask them a question: can you get me into the brand? They said, well, I'm looking here. I think you have to first review your website. And then, what about your mission and statement and values? And then we say, no, it's important, but can you get me those brands? And they, well, I couldn't present now in brands because you need to have this image. And I say, forget it. I need people that are doing things and they're certainly doing things differently than what they've been doing in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for our industry, Eric, for our greater industry, I think this is going to be a big shift. I think on marketing specifically, you just touched on. Freeman, they've been a big client of ours for a very long time, and I give them credit that years ago they asked us to get outside of our comfort zone and start to go, to industry, especially marketers who are not from the traditional verticals within the events industry and travel and tourism. And it was the thinking that they then brought into their brand. And what we're seeing is some of our clients, I think, are coming to the realization that boy, this is a great time for others from other significant brands to come in and look at the way that we market and how we go to market as an industry, and start to infuse a different way of the experiential piece, especially. And I think that'll be a shift for our industry, where it's not so much time and position that's going to get you the job. It's going to be innovation, and it doesn't really matter where that happened, right? So,
which is not a bad thing.
It's a good thing. Yeah, I think it's a really good thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, Mike, thank you very much for sharing all your knowledge with us today. I know you're in big demand, especially those weeks. And I'd like to ask you one last question for today.
Sure.
If we meet again, or when we meet again in 1 year with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to be celebrating?
Let's hope that we're celebrating a vaccine, Eric. But let's hope that we're celebrating in person at an industry event, and let's hope that we're doing it sitting in a room that's talking about DE&I, and where everyone is really getting to the same education level on that. I think that would be the best of all worlds, wouldn't it? And that's the key to get us traveling again. And to get the public traveling again, but also to get meetings back up and running again. Boy, I think that will be a cause for champagne for sure. Absolutely.
How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, searchwideglobal.com, and my email is gamble@searchwideglobal.com. And
awesome.
I'd love to hear from folks. And again, Eric, really appreciate you having me on today. I really do.
Well, thanks for taking the time.
You bet.
Thank you, Mike.
Take care.
Thank you, Mike Gamble, for sharing your knowledge with us today. Great points about the skills that we should be focusing on for the future, and where is our industry going. If you want to get in touch with me, please join us in the private Facebook group, www.eventbusinessformula.com/group, or you can find me as well on LinkedIn. Thank you.